everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I am Richard Carlton here with my trusty team of awesome people, which includes Margaret, Jacob Taylor, who's our server expert. So we're going to be able to handle some questions today about FileMaker Server. So if you have some open questions about FileMaker Server in general, please feel free to ask those. And then we also have Michael, who is our ongoing expert on FM Starting Point Lite. That's the 2022, the year. We're using 22. It's not version 22, it's year 22. So it's Starting Point 2022, and he is the kingpin on that. We did kind of a live code review yesterday of it. We found a couple of things that didn't make sense. We fixed some other bugs. We're going to have a update out for you this coming week. Now, a very, 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 very important announcement. This is like, you guys are all going to want to hear about it, you guys and gals, right? So stand by one second. Let me bring up, let's see. So if I go to fmtraining.tv, so upcoming next week, we had scheduled the 30-day CRM thing, right? And it was supposed to start this coming Monday. We are going to push it back 2 days. Why? Because out of the blue today, Claris decided, hey, we're going to come on your TV show. And I'm like, really? It would be better if you pushed it back so we could plan on it? Because anyway, so there's like, marketing and awareness, and I have to tell some people to move around and all that kind of shit. So anyway, the CRM action, right? The CRM 30-day for beginners starts Wednesday of next week. Monday and Tuesday are going to be different. I don't know if our webpage is reflecting that yet. Let me see where we're at with our live page. Yeah, so it shows that the Wednesday, oh no, here we go. Yeah, Monday and Tuesday are under construction. So Monday and Tuesday, Monday we're going to be covering, without any Claris babysitting, FileMaker, what's on the tap for 19.5, what's on tap in detail, what's on tap for 19.6, right? Loosely, because we haven't played with it too much, and also what's on tap for 20. And 20 is already shipped, yet 19.6 hasn't shipped. It's kind of, I can't say this out loud, so I'm sure it'll be censored when I say the F word here. You'll hear it beep automatically, so it's a cluster, okay? Oh, wait a minute, it didn't beep. My bad. It'll beep it out in the recording. So anyway, so Claris is like, yeah, we should come on and talk to people. I'm like, dude, please do. You can come and explain this. I'm going to sit back, and I really need the Discordians and all of you who have your questions to ask your questions. Please ask your questions. Ask them. So that will be Tuesday. So Tuesday is an all-hands-on-deck kind of Andy Lecates from Claris, and I'm assuming only him, but maybe someone else will come too. You should feel free to fire whatever questions you have at him that you feel is good and useful. But we'll try to maintain a high-level behavior. So David Angel, no nakedness, but any other memes. Memes are encouraged if they're appropriate, right? So that's great. So Monday, Tuesday. So we're going to tee things up on Monday to get your brain going. There's actually quite a bit. We talked a little bit about this last Friday with the Problem Solver Circle. He's going to want to talk about that on Tuesday. Claris says keep beating that because they're trying to kind of sell that. Because they feel that larger organizations, if any of you are part of a large organization like Kyle, if Kyle's part of Victoria's Secret, if only the marketing department has FileMaker, the rest of the organization could benefit. And if the rest of the organization benefits, then Claris sells more product. It's a pretty simple formula. I don't disagree. I totally think that's correct. I think all of Victoria's Secret could probably use FileMaker and be very beneficial. And Kyle would be there, running it. So that's Tuesday. So Monday, I'm going to prep everyone with what I know. If I run into something I don't know, I will tell you that. Jacob Taylor will be here probably both days, just my guess, because there is some server stuff coming with 19.5. We're going to kind of just cover this. I don't know what else to say. Claris keeps talking about it. It's public, and so we're just going to dive into it. Yep. I don't know when you're going to get 19.5. I think anytime you'll get 19.5.
If you want, I can be super excited on Monday and talk about all the cool new stuff that is both awesome and terrifies me about 19.5.
Anyway, so today is an open Q&A, but we're saving the future open Q&A for other stuff. So today, I was trying to prep stuff for today, and I've been in meetings with Claris trying to understand what's secret and what's not secret. Because I had a meeting with them this morning, and they said, this is secret. And they pull out their gun, and they said, no one talks about this. It's secret. And then, meanwhile, the that was secret is still on a YouTube video that a lot of you were asking me about last Friday, right? And it's still there, right? And so it's like, is that secret? It's not secret. Well, this video is secret. The content of the video is not secret, but the fact that our voices are here are secret. It's so confusing. So, um, anyway, so I am confused. So the best thing for me to do is kind of lay the kitchen table out for you the best I understand it on Monday. Then Andy could come in and explain to you how forks and spoons and knives work. Right? So if you have a spork, that kind of they're going to have new kinds of silverware to show you. It'll be exciting. So once again, Monday, Tuesday, for those of you arriving late, the CRM thing, the beginning CRM starts Wednesday. We're going to move it back 2 days because Claris wants to come on Tuesday and talk to us about FileMaker 19.5, 19.6, and 20 and public, what is it? Problem Solver Circle, PSC. PSC. Jacob Taylor is here as our FileMaker server expert, Amazon AWS expert. And so if we have questions about FileMaker servers and Amazon AWS today, I'm happy to take any kind of questions. We can show Michael's FM starting point to 2020 Lite. We are actively unkinking the bugs that we discussed yesterday. We found about that. And Mikey, if you have a question, and you folks have questions, if you're on Twitch, feel free to let us know what your question is. But it's kind of an open Q&A day, so we want to make sure that we're answering that, right? Yep, answering questions, because it's kind of wild all over the place, and I want to be responsive and help you out. So if you have a question about some problem you're running into, throw it out. Today is the day. No penalty. No penalty, as long as it's on topic. Which brings up one mention I will mention for Friday this week. We are doing the live stream. Jacob Taylor will be doing it with Calvin, and they're talking about fixing the email, your email options for sending out kind of free emails through Google Mail, or as an alternative to Google Mail, because a lot of people have Google accounts for free. They like their FileMaker to send out mails directly through that. So your CRM can send you an alert that an invoice was paid or something like that. And a lot of that's going to get broke at the end of the month. So we're trying to alert people to that. That will be a conversation for Friday, a very important conversation. Ken has a question about AWS, not FileMaker related. Is that germane to ask? Yeah, I mean, yeah, more or less.
Sure, go for it.
Because a lot of the AWS, remember, I mean, Jacob, can you show your screen and just log on to AWS and show us the interface? I mean, I guess they have the new interface now, which is a little bit cleaner. So, but their interface used to be, it would be like a little icon and a sentence for each service they had, and they had like 160 or 70 or 80 or 200 services. It's like the ultimate playhouse for a programmer type person. Okay, so this is a little bit, your screen is a little bit, can you go to Chrome and say view, and make it a little bit bigger? You don't have to redo your screen, just make the web page bigger. There you go, more.
About 150.
There we go. Yeah, there we go, that's good. So this is kind of a dumbed down thing. But EC2, for those of you just wondering real quick, right? This is where you have virtual servers, right, that we set up, your FileMaker server. This is a simple email service we'll be talking about on Friday. Route 53 is DNS control. I have no idea what light sail is. Application.
Tiny virtual machines.
Really?
Yep. It's like fully managed. So
okay.
I forget, there's light sail and there's another one that I was confused the two. But they and this is why Amazon has like 1,500 services or some disgusting number of things. They have like a service that hits every part of the market. So like EC2 is, it's virtual machines, which is from your perspective not different from light sail, except EC2 is we manage it, and you can do like fleets of servers. Light sail is it's bubbled. We don't have to care. We don't boot it. There's no
kind of like a containerization a little bit, or that kind of idea.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So it's more. It's like 2 steps toward a managed system, right?
Okay. Okay.
So that you can put your code up there and it runs, but
Yep.
there's a lot less of the detail that you have to pay attention to. Amazon kind of runs it for you, if you will.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to Mikey's question in a second. First question is migrating FileMaker server external storage to AWS something a mere mortal can accomplish, or does it take a Superman like Jacob Taylor?
What does that mean? External? That just
External
means you have your
files.
container data.
Yeah, but okay.
If it's just stored external secure, yeah, you can bring that over. Yep.
If you have it, okay, backup. How would you handle that, right? Because you would have the FileMaker. Can you go into a directory? Let's talk about this. Can you log into a EC2 server? I don't give a shit which one. And let's dig into
I have development systems. That's it.
Yeah, that's all we need. Let's go to a development system. Yeah, let's do that.
Let me hide that. Yeah, you're on my M1, so you get everything, and I only have one screen, so
that's fine. So this is our
videos that looks a little better.
Yeah, it's like
yes.
really
this is our West Coast development server. It's got a ton of stuff on it. So what do you want to demo?
So let's just find if we wanted to navigate to the path where the FileMaker's at on the machine, it should be on the C drive, wherever the hell that's at.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the C drive, and I'm gonna kind of zoom in on this a little bit here. So we went to the C drive down here. Okay, there's your path, and then program files, FileMaker server, and then it should be data.
Yep.
And then databases.
Yep.
Okay, click on that, and then there's nothing here. Is this a server
correct.
Not in use? Okay.
No, it's packed. It's got like 40. It's got 50 databases on it. 48, I think.
How come I can't see them?
They're not in here. We don't put them in the. This is the default database directory.
Okay, that's what I'm training people on.
We do not put databases in here. Yeah, we do. We for our AWS servers, we do not put databases on the C drive. Period. We only put databases inside the. We use that additional database directory. That's what Claris calls the feature. In 16 there were 2. You could add 2 different additional database directories. They limited that to 1, which is fine because we don't use 2 of them.
So you put that on D. Is that what that is down here?
Yep, live databases and then backups. Yep.
Okay, so why don't you go and show us that? But what I'm trying to do is show them. So if
there's your billion folders.
Okay, so open. We need one that's not a customer. That is a test one.
That one's empty.
That one's empty.
That one.
Okay, hold.
Empty.
There we go. This is so that we're in that directory, and so what you have is you have the live files here, and these files here will save into a directory called RC Data FMS. So this is I'm answering Ed's question or attempting to answer it. All your remote container, whether it's secure or unsecure, whether it's encrypted or not, will all be in here. Whatever is needed to support these 3 FileMaker files, right? You could probably open that. Would it show you?
I don't think there's anything. Yeah, so there will be folders always, whether or not you have any. So that's an empty folder. That is probably also empty, and I'm expecting also empty. So because there is no externally stored container data for these 3 databases in particular.
Okay. But they would have been. Yeah, and so you would grab. So when you move your stuff, you would. You have to get this off of here along with the remote container directory, right?
Yep.
You need both those together. So can a mortal human move that themselves, and how would they do that?
The easiest way is just to zip it. So go on your FileMaker. So you're in migration mode. We're going to migrate. We're moving to the new server.
Yep.
We're going to go in. We're going to close down the existing databases. So they're closed, capital C, closed on the server. And then you can come into, and in this case, right, we're using the additional database directory.
But normally it would be in the C drive and the
So you'd come over here. You'd go into FileMaker server.
Yep.
If you're in a default database location, your data will
be in here. Okay, in the C drive.
And so what you can do is either grab stuff here. Maybe you have some old databases, or whatever. So there's 2 ways. Basically, they're both the same thing, but there's 2 ways to do it. One is just grab this whole database directory. I would still advise you to zip it, unless your internet is blisteringly fast, and I mean like greater than gigabit. like you have a 10 gig internet connection, I don't know anyone who does, but maybe you do, then you don't have to zip it. It probably doesn't matter. But if it's anything less than that, just do it because it makes it easier.
Okay.
So there's two approaches. You zip this folder, great. However, I will tell you, if you've had the server installed for a long time, you will probably have a removed by FMS directory in here with a bunch of old trash databases that people have uploaded 5 years ago, or some previous server migration, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you do that, you'll bring everything with you. If that's intentional, right, go for it. But yeah.
But the trick is that you want to make sure that that's your remote container data, and this is your database, and all those have to go together to wherever the new server is. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and so if you have a we'll say an out of the box FileMaker server configuration approximately, then all you have to do is take that, whatever the contents of that are, which will be your databases over here, your FMP12s, and then there's some other folders that'll be in here too. The only one that you need, capital N need, is the RC data FMS.
Okay.
Bring that and the relevant databases over and plop them in the new space. That's it.
Yeah.
If you're on a Mac, there's some permission things that go into that. If you're on Windows, there are not. Period. Okay. So.
All right. Cool.
Unless your IT people are messing with you, and then maybe there are. So.
All right. Cool. Mikey had a question for Jacob, and it's one that I'm probably more apt to answer because it's stuff that I do. Mikey says, what is the acceptable latency from AWS to the client? It's not so much from AWS to the client. It's acceptable latency. Your stuff is really small, Jacob. So, if you want to adjust that or not really, whatever, it works for you. So it's not so much from Amazon. Amazon happens to be where your server's at. It's really from your FileMaker server to your client. Claris officially says that they recommend a latency of less than 150 milliseconds. So let's just give you some benchmark numbers real quick. So what you're going to have locally within your office, locally within your office, you're going to have half a millisecond to 1.5 milliseconds. Across town with good network connection, like from one side of the Bay Area to the other side of the Bay Area, across Fremont or inside of Portland or Seattle or wherever, Los Angeles, someplace, London, you're going to see less than 30 milliseconds. Less than 30 milliseconds is pretty damn fast. I like FileMaker performance for everything that I do. Less than 30 is really great. It might be 45, but somewhere between 30 and 70. So from one side of the United States, from one side of the United States to the other side of the United States. So like if I go to Margaret in Virginia, and Margaret does a ping test, she might be as low as 70. 70 is as low as you're going to go from one side of the United States to the other side of the United States. 70 is starting to slow down. It's noticeable. If you compare your speed, like people say, on-prem server, the server is in my office, it's so fast. And I put it in the cloud and it slowed down so much. Well, that's kind of a loose description, but if you put it on the cloud, it probably went down to 50 or 60 or 70. And you notice a difference of, 50 times, 50 times slower, or percentage-wise, 5,000% slower, right? That kind of thing. It's a big deal. It's not twice as slow, because remember, you're going from like 1 millisecond on average to 50 milliseconds, right? So your software has to be really optimized. You can't be doing a lot of crazy unstored summaries and stuff like that. So. Yep. So the numbers that you're looking for, do you expect to see is 1 to 1.5 in the office, across town 30. When I go to Santa Clara from here, and I don't think I have ping tools in here that work anymore on this computer, right? Because they got rid of that stuff. They got rid of the pingy stuff. Oh, I have ping plotter. I guess I could try that.
That was the old one. Yeah, I think that was the one William liked.
Yeah, William liked this, and he had me buy a license, so...
the license is
I'm just going to use the free one right now. I'm going to move to the free one. I'm going to say close. So Ping Plotter is a Mac tool. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say, I don't even know if it'll do this. Oh, it is doing this. Okay, great. So I'm trying to read this here real quick. But I started a ping on one of the addresses in our office in our network, and it's pinging away, ping, 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 ping. And so initially it was like clipping away. We were doing pretty well. Round trip in milliseconds, right? So that's your low number you're supposed to have. And for whatever reason, it took a kind of a dump. And so it's hard to see this. Let me zoom in on this a little bit. So this was current, average, minimum, and then out of the blue, I think we dropped some packets and something. So this is the current level. So 31 milliseconds round trip. Okay, so when you do pings, I guess those are round trips. That last one was 75. So a lot of times across Santa Clara, it averages around 35 to 40. Santa Clara is 75 miles from here. So 30 is pretty damn quick. I normally see 30 to 40, somewhere in there. That's what you have. But then you'll be doing this along the way, then you'll have some outliers where it takes a dump on you, right? Or it totally loses the packet for whatever reason. FileMaker, so you have packets, the speed of the packets, and then the other issue that you have is if you have packets that are flying, say like, remember a packet is nothing more, it's really hard for me to come up with an analogy on the fly on this. Okay, here we go. Here's a paper towel. All right, so this is a paper towel. I'm going to roll this up. This has 100, I think 100K of data into it, 100K bytes of data in it. This is a little, and so when you shoot data across the internet, this is a packet. It's whizzing back and forth like little pieces of paper like this. And what FileMaker does is that, or a Word document or a browser or anything you do, it chops whatever you're trying to view, even images, up in these little packets, and it shoots these across the network. And so if you shoot 100 of them across the network, if all 100 of them get there, okay, well, A, you have no packet loss. None of these died and literally died and disappeared, right? It's like Area 51. Did it die and disappear? So it's how long it took for this to go. Latency is the delay it takes to go there, right? And the other one is packet loss, which is the number of these that die out of 100. And so when you have a one like this red one up here, there was some sort of packet where it sent like 100 of them out, and one or two or five of them went away. When you get 10% packet loss, you're going to start having some real problems with FileMaker, because the system, whenever you do that, your computer, the stuff is fault tolerant. It goes, hey, I sent 100 out, and then 10 didn't make it, and it can't reassemble the stuff on the other side without those missing 10, so it has to resend them. So it goes, 10 died. So it's like if Amazon mails you a package and it never shows up, well, you're like, well, give me my package or I'm going to cancel my order with my credit card, right? So Amazon sends you the package again, but there's a delay in you getting that package and you're pissed off. Welcome to the world of network computers, right? So very little packet loss, very good. And having the packets whiz there back and forth as fast as possible is great. And so 1.5 milliseconds is the packet going from this desk to the desk next door upstairs, the third floor. 30 to 40 milliseconds is this little thing going across town. Across the United States, it's 70 to the UK. It's like 150 to 180. I know that when we went to Mumbai, India, from here in California, it was 334. I remember that number very specifically.
Yep.
More than double the allowable level of, right? And so that's where we got into this whole conversation. And I see my Discord flashing over here. I'll answer it in a second. But that's where we got in the conversation with 360 Works and Jesse Barnum, who I should call while we're here. And he came on the show, and we talked about having a server in each continent. Because typically when you go across the ocean or under the ocean in a fiber optic line, right, that's where this is going to slow down some. Okay, why they slow down doesn't matter. It just does. Okay, and we don't really care why. But what's that? Physics. Yeah, well, it's
physics.
Yeah, it's
physics.
It's physics.
Yes.
Yeah, physics.
You're going through fiber, it's going to go really fast, and that's great. But at some point, 25,000 miles takes a second.
Yeah. So you get the physics that's going back and forth. And so the point is that you set up a FileMaker server in India, you set up a FileMaker server in Australia, you set up a FileMaker server in Japan, you set one up in maybe one in Ireland and one in Germany, for example. I don't think you can set one up in Russia, because then you'll be on someone's list. If you put it in Ukraine, it probably won't work. And then you put one on the East Coast of the United States, one on the West Coast of the United States. You get this idea. So then each of those servers, you're talking to your closest server. So you're doing that. And then the servers themselves are bundling up the changes and communicating. Like you make a change this record, Fred Smith in your CRM, and then 20 or 30 seconds later, after you change it in California, it updates to like Mumbai, India, and Frankfurt, Germany, and Ireland. So that's server replication, a different topic, but this is super relevant. And if you're new to FileMaker, you're probably new to this tech shit, unless you come from a tech world. Most people come to FileMaker, they're not necessarily super technical. And you don't have to be like the crazy programmer type, but you need to understand some basic physics of how networks work, because they're frankly the limiting factors in the world of FileMaker, right? So there you go. So sorry about that. I went way off in the weeds. Jacob, you want to pick up the questions here?
Sure. That's
David?
also a good, that's my summary of like later versions of FileMaker at this point. They've eliminated most of the what I call the internal application latency, which is like FileMaker Pro has to wait to get something done, or FileMaker Server is like not optimized, and so it's the thing that's making your app slow. Later versions of 19, essentially because of the work Claris has put in, do not have that problem anymore, and so we are 100% back to the purest and most boring advice for FileMaker, which is the old stuff. You are trying to avoid network latency because it is the biggest thing. It is what eats your application performance. Everything else is basically fast. And some features, this, that, and the other thing. There's details I'm ignoring here, but for the most part, your network
Sorting
latency is the big
sorting
one.
is always a problem, and Claris has
Yep.
tried to fix it, but it's still an issue. And summarizing
We'll
blocks of
we'll
data
talk
with
about
summary
some
fields.
forthcoming details on that. Yeah. Yep. They have some
Conveniently enough, if you want to learn
solutions
about
coming.
those performance issues, you should come here to FM Training and check out the bundles we have and purchase one of these two bundles, because within these bundles is our FileMaker Platform Pro course right here. We spend about 10 hours, 12 hours, and this is updated over the last year with very specific performance tuning tips and tricks for that. Once again, stuff that even Jacob doesn't know, doesn't worry about, doesn't really care
Yep.
because he doesn't code this stuff, but it's stuff that you need to know. Okay, very, very, very important. So if you're building a solution with more than say 20 or 30 people accessing it at one time, and or the server is far away from you in terms of milliseconds, like at least more than 30, you need to start thinking about this stuff. So that is that. Cool. All right. Mikey took care of that. Holler if you want advice on distributed teams. You can assist
Yeah,
us.
he was asking about that was the application latency question.
Okay.
What's an acceptable latency? I'm useful at picking locations for servers. If your people are too terribly distributed, then we tell you to get mirror sync or something like that, because you should just have two servers. Essentially, if people are
Yeah.
if your teams are like too far apart, I'll never forget the client we have where their two offices were in Paris and Tokyo. I can't. There's no. I can't square that circle.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a hard
One of
one.
those teams is getting screwed. That's
Ah.
the short
Yeah.
version.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep. 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 Here is the animations that we made for to describe this server replication stuff. So let me see if this is right here. So this is the world. And so what happens is you determine that there's too much latency. Like if your one server is here, there's too much latency for around the world. So you put a FileMaker server literally where most of your users are at. So this is West Coast United States, East Coast, one in Europe. Ireland would be over there somewhere. This is India. That's Japan. That's Australia.
yep.
And so if I press play here, the idea was that um, that Mirror Sync is a product, and see there it is. It goes down. Mirror Sync is a product that when everything's running, that all these report in their changes to here, and they also then kind of go say, hey, what other changes do I need that I need updates to? And so you would report a change, and then it keeps it's a hub. So this is the hub, and these are spokes. If you have two servers, it's fine. One's a hub, one's a spoke. But the idea that these things, here's the part with this. This goes down, these continue to run. They totally continue to run. Now their data might be slightly out of sync, etc. But for the most part, if you have a big team and they're all trying to edit the same record, they can all run independently. And then what ends up happening is that server gets restarted, right? You put the server comes back up, you turn it on, and then these things go through a very aggressive process of getting caught up on their syncy stuff. So fault tolerant. Now the other part of this, that's that one. This is a great one here. So watch this. This is great. So same deal, right? But people will connect to the closest. One of the things that Jesse showed us how people connect to the closest server, right? So these are all running, and so the people that, and these happen to be people that are West Coast, they connect here, and they're the closest one there. These people log in here, and it knows, Amazon knows that based upon latency, a little latency check, it knows what they're closest to, right? It's pretty slick. You got people up here, people over here. So you could have thousands of people using your FileMaker solution easily, but each server is only handling 200 or 300 maybe, right? And then say, for example, there's a problem, right? One of them blows up. These people get disconnected. That'll eventually happen here at some point. That one blows up. So these people down here are disconnected, right? And then they close FileMaker, reopen it, and Amazon goes, the closest server now is this one because this one is no longer responding, right? And so so not only is it replication and scalability, it's also this kind of failover thing. Now, once these people are connected to this, it's not going to automatically transfer them back, but once they quit FileMaker, they close the databases and reopen them, they would be redirected back to the closest one. Okay, makes sense? This is pretty bad. Let me be very clear. This is some bad. We did this over a week with Jesse Barnum at 360 Works.
Set this up for a client probably. I don't know. It'll depend on their schedule, but this week or next probably.
But you're going to set this exact thing up?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay.
One of our engineers is building the mirror sync part of it, so that's
okay.
that's one of the high latency portions of this. But the other half of it is the AWS part, the Route 53 configuration, which is what lets you do that balancing between the different nodes, where people in Australia go to the Australian server and so on.
Right.
They have the same problem there. They have a team over, forget if they're in Manila, I think so.
Yeah.
And then, but there's people, they have a bunch of people in the UK, they have a bunch of people in Turkey. They wanted servers for those people. And because, go talk all the way to Manila.
Well, we need to get our demo with 360 Works back and running, and I'm going to yell at Jesse about that. I know he's been busy. Can I pivot real quick? So there is a question here from David Angel. He wants to ask about progressive backups or IB incremental backups. Engineering calls them incremental backups. Frequently, what Claris calls them and what the engineering team at Claris calls them are two different things. But yeah, so do you want to share your screen and talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Very tiny detail. If you ever look in the list of like FileMaker services, you'll see an FMSIB. You can guess what that is.
Yeah, we can't see your screen.
I haven't shared my screen yet.
That's okay. You're sharing stuff us verbally, but I really
I'm talking while I get the windows ready.
It's a fake. It's a decoy. Got it.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So here we go.
See that. So you want incremental backups. All right. So incremental backups are, where are they located? No, it's on configuration, isn't it? Yeah. So admin console, right? This exists this has been almost the same, not quite unchanged, but very close since 17. This feature is located in the same place in all of them, which is the folders. Yes. And so you can come here, and this is the backup folders. And so it's not on by default. You just literally click enable. Yeah. So, and since I worked here several years ago, didn't really turn them on. And we're changing the policy back to what was basically the original policy when I was hired at RCC, which was to enable progressive backups. The reason for that is because previous to, it may have changed in like 19.3. It's a very recent change. The incremental backup system, when it runs, now logs into the event log that it's doing so, that it's running. That this backup is running. It's the 5-minute, blah blah blah. These databases got backed up. These ones did not, et cetera, et cetera. It has its little like running thought of what it's doing, and that's great. And what that means is that I can now identify the individual FileMaker databases that got backed up, and which backup is good. So for example, because at least by default, progressive backups run every 5 minutes. That's awesome. It means you will, ideally you'll basically lose no data in case of a crash. However, in case of a crash, you do need to know what the last one that ran was. And so for simplicity purposes, because it is not solely that the backup system has to work when you're doing a crash restoration. That's important, of course. But the second part is don't torture the person who's doing the backup restoration, right? And so you want to streamline the thought process, because their hair is going to be on fire and the business is down, and maybe their boss is yelling at them and whatever, because they need to get the business back up and running again. And so one of the things that we go through with like restoration processes is not merely like which is a good backup copy, but also like, is it easy to choose that? Is it easy to determine which backup is good? And so I had previously just basically not set up progressives on a lot of servers because of that, because it was no way to tell if, for example, the most recent progressive backup had completed at crash time. You have no idea. There's a log entry now. We can validate that. So
Really?
yes, yeah, 100%.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I found that, well, not naming the client, but one of our on-site server customers, they had their own internal policy said, no, we absolutely have to have incremental backups. And I was like, perfect, done. Turned it on, took them live, did some other stuff, came back and looked at the event log and found point by point entries, every single individual database, every 5 minutes, which ones got backed up. And I was like, I have to eat my words. So
yeah,
we turn it on now.
Normally
Yep.
the way we would do it is I would never use the very last backup. I would go back just because I didn't have time to check the logs
Correct.
endlessly.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would I wouldn't use
And
the last backup. I'd use the one before
the
that
one previous, because then you can
because
say, well,
if
we
it
know
got
it.
to the last backup, probably the previous one probably finished successfully, right? So
Correct. Right, right. And so that's 100% true. And so for customers that 100% want like quick backup restorations, right? They have data that cannot be reproduced easily. Like we call them high speed systems. It's not so much about the application performance, but about the data, and like a lot, because a lot of businesses, you can go back and re-enter an invoice really quickly, or regenerate a PDF that's based on record data that's already in there, stuff like that. It's like, it's not that hard to go back and get the data again. And so, but for customers that are like, no, we have data flowing into this thing that it's difficult or impossible to make it flow back in again, whatever that means. For those customers, we would just do 15-minute backups, because those backup schedules, like any regular backup schedule, logs every time it runs. And so that's not terribly different from a 10-minute old backup, right?
hmm
Um, 10 to 15 is not a huge difference, and that's basically meets their requirements. However, I don't have to do that anymore, and that's because we now have logged progressive backup runs. And so, yeah, we can 100% just do that. We can just restore from the progressive backups, because we can go look at the event log and validate particular databases that have been backed up and that process completed.
All right, so
So
let me talk about two things here that have popped up relative to this conversation. David is asking the question. I don't know if he's answering his own question or not. So the way that progressive backups work, and I could dig this out of a directory. I'm not going to bother. When you start progressive backups, it writes to a directory a complete snapshot of all your databases and the containers too, the remote containers too. Then whatever the increment time period is, I guess I could zoom over here and look at this. I wasn't looking at this, but let me zoom back in here. There it is. Okay, so here, let me, can you zoom? Man, I tell you, Jacob.
no,
No. Okay, I'm zooming, but it's
I
so
have a single
pixelated.
screen. I don't
It's
even have
okay.
this
I'm
10.
zooming
It's
in,
only a
but
single
this is
1080p
really
screen.
ugly. Okay, so what it does is the incremental backup system maintains two backups. It's the last two that it's created, and what it does is when it's going to go and create the next incremental backup, first what it does, it kind of it essentially it snapshots a new folder, okay, and then it finds all the change that FileMaker server has made in that time window and writes them in there. Okay, it's very interesting. So it's only writing the data changes that have occurred. So if you have 100 files and 5 files have been changed, it doesn't rewrite those 5 files. It's just going to write the blocks of data within the file that changed. It sounds very dangerous, but it's been working really reliably for a number of years. So I'm comfortable in saying that it
And
works without, yeah.
they actually have recently fixed up and patched a couple bugs in it, so it works even more reliably than it ever
Ah,
has.
okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is that, so then it creates this third one, right? And you don't see it happen. There's 3 of them in here. And then once it's got a third one that's totally completed, it takes the oldest one and it just deletes it. Okay. And so you always have 2 good ones. So this is an incremental backup. So that's how that works. I don't see any questions at the moment. Let me pivot to something slightly, and this came up with Jacob yesterday or today. I've been living in dog years because of all the Claris, frankly, shenanigans. It's been very stressful. In fact, I don't have any acne on my face. Most of my zits have like gone away because I was breaking out acne due to all the stress that they're putting me under with the crazy stuff they're doing. It's not a little bit, it's a lot. We're going to deal with that on Monday and Tuesday next week. So, um, but Jacob got into this issue today, and he just mentioned it briefly again as your server restoration process. And I remember Chris Moyer and Heidi Porter talking about kind of having a written checklist in the event that there's some sort of ransomware attack. Well, before you even get to something that level, you should have a written process. And actually, it should be probably a live stream that we do. And I don't know if you could do it in one day, Jacob, but I want to create this and book it out for a couple months when we're done with the 30-day CRM.
Yep.
So this is the flight manual for, let me flip, I think that's backwards. Let me flip this around so you all can see it. This is the flight manual for my helicopter, okay? I'm a pilot and I'm a commercial pilot, so I have to basically memorize this mother book plus a lot of stuff. Now, this is relevant because I've talked about this before, in that in the event of an emergency in the helicopter, there's the one tab. We all see that, what that says right there? Emergency procedures. Now, with a helicopter, everything happens so fast, it has to be automatic. But in a Cessna, I remember when I first learned in a Cessna years ago, that most of the that happens in Cessna happens slow enough that you can actually have the section on emergency procedures out on a card and you can reference it, right? Like airline pilots and stuff mostly follow a checklist because when you're flying at 30,000 feet and there's an emergency, unless the wing falls off or something, they have time to read the checklist. In a helicopter, you have to have it memorized, but let's just pretend. So we need to have, for every one of you here who has a FileMaker server, you need to have an emergency checklist that is printed, that is hanging next to your server that you can follow. So, topics for a thing, power failure to your FileMaker server. I'm adapting this from mine. Power failure, right? Power failure due to the internet. Power failure because someone plugs a vacuum into the same power switch as the server. No, I've had that happen. Power failure due to a 3-year-old pushing the power off button on the battery backup. Okay, you could kind of condense those down, right? FileMaker server becomes unresponsive due to unknown issue. What is your procedure on that, right? Customer reports unable to connect. Okay, what is your process on that? Normally, most people don't give it, but within all your customers report the same problem, then it's probably your issue. What is your process on that, right? And so you really need to have, after you flip open the red tab, you need to have a section on what you do, right? What do you do in the event that your FileMaker server has to land in the water, right? That's no. What happens if your FileMaker server is drowned like a rat? We had a customer 2 years ago and drowned like a rat. Another customer where someone broke in their office. It was in a closet. The machine was in a closet, therefore it must be important, and so they stole the machine and the 2 backups that were attached to it. Okay.
Yep.
What do you do about that? Right. All these things you need to be prepared for, and can I just state that you need to write it out? And I've had Jacob, it was this morning you were telling me about a customer named blah, who, even though we've written them out, they either don't follow it or they don't want to follow it or they're too stressed to follow the checklist. But the checklist is here to keep you alive, right? Or your database alive, right? So
and that particular customer, it's a classic example. The IT person is not familiar with FileMaker at all. They can operate pro well enough that they recently learned how to create a new database, which is perfect. That's exactly who we want to target. Also, that person is responsible for the server, and so it is what I say. Those people will try to get the business back up and running because that is what they have been tasked with. That's their job. they may do that better or worse. They can follow those directions and that emergency checklist better or worse. In this case, they did not have an emergency checklist, and so
Most people don't have a written emergency checklist, and we talked about
correct.
this. So should we do a live stream where we actually kind of have a kind of a blank one that we kind of give to everyone and we kind of fill out along the way and give them a
We
checklist?
can we can cover about one variant of that per live stream.
Okay.
It's huge
Okay.
because people have to have a if you want to cover all of the like the network, somebody's connectivity problem went down, something like that. All right, how do we troubleshoot that? I can do all of those because that is my job, but
Do we have any
it's a
buzzing?
lot.
Do people like
It's
the
a lot.
checklist? Do you like the checklist? Stu, I don't know what Stu's MARSOC guy or what Stu is, but I guarantee if you're in the Navy and it's action stations or whatever the hell you guys call it there, I think it's a British term. You guys have a plan. There's an emergency checklist for damn near everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rip
Yeah.
the handle and send in the Marines, right? So yeah, you guys want to
I
do?
have one I have like a written out one, I believe, for what it's pointers for the basic case, which is like FileMaker servers like not running or something, the machine went down, and
Mhm.
like what do you do?
Yep.
um Restore from backups, that's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, but what does that look like, right? So,
Correct. Yeah. Yep. And that's what this person was having like challenges with, is they had heard some of this stuff, but and so their boss, who of course was on vacation because nothing ever happens while the boss is there and can like advise you and help. In this case, the boss actually is much more familiar with FileMaker. They're the person who I don't know, built the solution, but with the consultants and stuff like that. But they know enough. Basically, they know how to stay out of trouble for the most part.
well,
Um,
yeah. And
and that's who told the IT person, hey, would you please go check what you did with RCC to make sure that you performed it correctly? And so they did not, and I mean they checked with us, but they did not do it correctly, and so I had to write a lovely email yesterday explaining exactly like what should have been done differently and how to kind of resolve the problem that they had created. So
yeah, I think a big part of this is important for people is that so just because you have the book on how to be a helicopter pilot doesn't mean you know you're from a hole in the ground. Just because you've heard about FileMaker Server and you listen to Jacob doesn't mean you know your house from a hole in the ground. To be a pilot, they actually make you go through and do this stuff on a check ride. Okay. Um, there's no legally mandate that you get a check ride before you have a FileMaker server. Not saying it's not a bad idea to actually, if here is your emergency procedure section, right? Are you prepared? Demonstrate you can do this. I've actually been there. It was before Jacob was hired. I don't know how far it goes back, but I had a server guy who swore he knew what he was doing. And I went over and I ripped the cord out of the back of the server and I said, pull your checklist, do it. I'm watching. And it was, So you don't want to be the first time you've actually really gone through the checklist, really, to be it when you're under a live fire exercise, right? As for a stew conversation, right? You bleed in training so you don't bleed in real life, right? That's the kind of idea. So you need to train a little bit. You need to go through the exercise. Maybe we can do that with a couple victims. I mean, I'm just talking out loud, but you take Ken Tooley, maybe Scott, maybe
it's
Brutterman. Uh,
yeah, I can tell you how to. There's a couple different. We can fake a couple different things.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Um,
but you bring them on the live stream and you say, okay, you
yep.
guys got your checklist,
Get
go.
your people out of your database. We're going to destroy it on purpose,
Well, we could
with no
we
risk.
could set up a fake server for them and then let
Oh
them
yeah,
do
for
it. But
sure.
yeah, but make them do it and
We have the
watch them
stream
do it.
machine
And it
that
would
use
be a
that.
great live stream. People be like, "Oh, come on, Ken, press that button, baby. We know which one it is." And he's like, "Oh, which button?"
Yep.
It's like Star Trek. Everyone's shaking around and shaking, and which button? And everyone's like, "Oh my god."
The
So
right
yeah, that
one.
would be a
Which
good one.
one?
That would be a good one because this is real.
There's a misbehavior in FileMaker Server. This is why we tell everybody, and I'll show you the setting right now. Bring my
Okay,
screen up if
let
it's
me
not,
zoom
because I
back in
can't.
here where we are.
So this is a screen you want to look at. This is one of the key features we always tell everybody to change, which is this right here, which is automatically hosting the databases when the server software comes back up again. We turn that off essentially everywhere. Um,
Off, 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 off,
there's a couple limited scenarios where we don't,
off,
but we can make that
off.
determination together. In general, don't ever have that feature on. Do not. And the reason is because of a misbehavior here. So this makes sense. And from a usability perspective, you're like, oh yeah, of course you'd want the databases to open automatically. Duh. And this is exactly what the client I'm referencing from yesterday, what they ran into. I think we did some configuration work on their server, so it's set correctly. And so the person came in and the databases were closed. They had lost power at their office was why the thing went down. And that is a perfect scenario. Restore
Yep,
from backups.
yep,
Good to
yep,
go.
yep, yep, yep.
And it was on a weekend. Oh, there's no data going into the system. Perfect, right? Couldn't have been. I mean, is it right? You not ever going down would have been the best situation, but otherwise, perfect restoration scenario. So when you come in here, the machine starts back up again. FileMaker server launches. So in the case where you have this feature turned on, it will try and open all your databases. That's what it says. If it looks at the databases and says, hey, that wasn't closed properly, right? Because the power went off, FileMaker server crashed, like whatever the reason is, something like that, it'll do a consistency check on the database. However, it is very, very, very important to know that consistency check is very narrow. What it is looking for is like ridiculously obvious corruption in the file structure. If there's corruption in the data, it doesn't care. It will open that corrupted database. And so so your data could be corrupted. Your structure can still be corrupted because it may not be, like, we'll say, bad enough to warrant a halt.
Yes.
The UX misbehavior here, though, is that, for example, so let's say your server was configured correctly, you had this power outage, you're coming in and looking at it. If you go open the databases, it'll do that consistency check.
So you would go over here to databases. What the person do? Went over to databases, and they
They see their
said,
databases.
"Oh,
They're all
you press
I
this
know
button
these
right here."
is on. They're blue. But,
Yeah.
right. So it'd be
They're all off.
everything be closed.
You click over here, and you say
do
open all, right?
Yep.
Except that the files don't pass a consistency check. So
right. And so they stay. And so what happens is it takes some time, however long, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, totally dependent on the size of your database. And it fails, right? Let's say one of the databases fails. Some of them are fine. They pass the consistency check, but one of them, your key one, fails. So what does it do in that scenario? It doesn't tell you anything. It goes back to it's yellow during the scan. If it takes long enough, you'll see the yellow icon, and then it goes back to gray again.
So you got
tell you anything has gone wrong.
Blue for the ones that are running, and then gray for the ones that aren't.
Gray little stop icon.
And so if you try to start your car and the car doesn't start, what do you do a second time? You
try and start it again.
Start it again. And so what does the person
like,
do?
My car's misbehaving. It's being a little funky. We need to, maybe the battery's a little weak, but you try it over again and see, oh, maybe it starts the second time, right? Okay. What you have actually just done in FileMaker Server is when you hit that open all a second time, it will open them. Because what you have, it doesn't tell you this, and you may not be aware of it, but what you have just done is requested FileMaker Server to override its own fail. So it failed the file. It did not pass the consistency check, and so it said this file's not, generally speaking, safe to run. And again, longer conversation about what kinds of damage you can have and that kind of stuff. But at a basic level, it has already validated you have corruption in your file. It is literally a corrupted file. And so what you've done, asking it to open a second time, is to override that determination by FileMaker Server.
Open, please open. After, if you press it enough, eventually it
I want my business, give it, it's mine, turn it on.
Yes.
If FileMaker Server is not being funky, it is not, so if it doesn't open, it is telling you to piss off, and you should listen to that. And so what this client did is they thought it was being funky or buggy or just a wily software.
Wily software.
Right? Not respecting the human requested it open. It thought about it and then didn't. And that didn't occur to them. Oh, maybe there's something there. And it doesn't tell you there's like, even the silly version. I know nobody reads these notification bells or whatever, but like it could send a notification here. We got some in here from our whatever. But like it could ping that and be like, hey, you just did something, like you just overrode. It doesn't. So when you do that, you've then opened the corrupted database, period. And it will just not check it a second time and forcibly open the database. You are now, whatever your users do from that point, you are now entering data into and manipulating a corrupted database. Congrats. Don't do that. Please avoid that at all costs, because as I have to tell people this, and that's why we go through it, it's very expensive to get corruption out of your database. Obviously, we're consultants. We love money. That's not the kind of money that we want to take from our clients. That's bad money. It's not new features. It's
dirty
not even
money.
Maintenance. It's bad. It means someone has messed up. A horrible process has gone horrifically wrong at multiple points. And you are now in the situation where you are trying to recover from a known bad point. You want to avoid finding yourself in that
I'm over
situation.
here kissing the $10,000 stack for you, so I'm like,
yeah. Absolutely right. Baby. If you have to bring in one of our senior engineers, Richard's making out with a stack of $10,000. So
I don't want this to be you. Keep your money. Be awesome.
Yep.
If you want to give me 10 grand and we're going to build you some bad, I'm all for that. But I don't want to take 10 grand because you press the button and it's like this. If you don't follow this right here, this checklist right here, either you die or you trash $500,000 real fast. So, I mean, if I told people, hey, if you don't follow your FileMaker checklist, it might send electrical short through the mouse and kill you, they would take it much more seriously, I think. So, anyway.
So, and that's the big takeaway though, is there's several different good options for like how to kind of resolve this. I put in a request to Claris that somebody somewhere maybe someday soon think about doing something about that.
Okay, cool.
I would love that. That would make I sleep pretty well at night. It would make me sleep a little better at night. For our Amazon servers, it doesn't really, none of this stuff affects us because they're all configured correctly. There's no question. But it is a question for the people who they host on site. They run their own servers. They have their own IT personnel. Whether those people, have specific familiarity with FileMaker Server or not. Many don't. And that's fine, honestly, but that means that the software needs to kind of behave a little better for people that they don't know what FileMaker is, and it should do the right thing, which is frankly just prevent you from opening a crashed database. I don't how Claris wants to handle that. I don't really care, but handling it because it's not currently.
All right, cool. I like it. What Ken said. We're gonna push this button. What does it do? Yeah, I like that. So we're done for today. Tomorrow, Klaus Levent, I think, is here tomorrow. I believe that is the case. We're a bit late.
You are correct.
Klaus Levent. What is Klaus doing tomorrow? What are
he's got like a whole list of things. Basically, it's just developer tips, like tips on how to be a better developer, like overall.
All right, we'll email your mother, tell her you love her if she's still with us, right? Be nice to stray kittens and puppies, right? I mean, those kind of like life tips or different kind of life tips.
No, we try to enhance workflows. Basically, are you taking your own medicine? Basically, it's about like we optimize all these stuff for our customers, but are you actually optimizing the way that you work?
Look at this book right here. If anyone wants to read this book, but I'm sure it's amazing. So if you guys folks have any questions about stuff, but I think us doing a live fire training exercise, almost live fire. We're not going to blow your servers up. We will create a real server. We're going to put some pressure on you. We're going to hear the Jeopardy music playing. And Ken and Stu and Larry and not Kyle. Kyle actually might follow the instructions. But
I think Kyle would follow the instructions.
That'll be good. That'll be fun. We should do that. So we'll plan on doing that. That'll be good. Team training. I like that. So that's good. So, all right. Well, don't forget tomorrow's great. And then Monday, Tuesday next week is going to be FileMaker 19.5, 19.6, 2020. All right, so that'll be exciting next week. Okay. All right, cool. Thanks, everyone. Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.